to the Q Code. Your curiosity quest starts here.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Q Code podcast. Travis, Danny, Alan, here again to explore the universes of questions.
Thought you were going to go with to explore the unknown.
I had a blank. I didn't even know where to go from
Just
there.
to explore in general.
Just explore things.
I think that's why our podcast slogan is "Your curiosity quest starts here." So that kind of does that help?
Yeah,
Trav?
exactly. It's really just a shot in the dark because who knows what we're going to talk about. So things that you may be curious about, who knows if we'll ever get to it. but
I'm sure that we'll get to like at least something you're curious about. Maybe not everything that someone's curious about.
I'm just saying, if you're coming into this podcast with specifics, you just have to broaden your horizons a little bit.
Because everything we talk about is interesting.
Super random stuff.
Yeah.
But
kind of, it's just basically any normal conversation where it's not you don't have the same conversation about the same thing with the same person every time, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, or else get a divorce.
If this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, just to give a little bit of a background on what this podcast is all about and how it got started is basically we had another podcast, a sports podcast, and it was okay. Just we realized that we had a lot more fun just talking about random things than we did actually about the sports. Now, not to take anything away from sports, because we still love that, and there still might be some sports coming at some point in time. Who knows? But it's just...
Yeah, with the NBA playoffs going on, who knows?
We are our best content. We would always start out with a random topic and just kind of see where that took us. And that usually took us the first 15, 20 minutes. And that was the best feedback we ever got, was like, why don't you guys just do the first 20 minutes, but make it longer? It's like,
really,
okay, so
I don't think very many people listen past the first 20 minutes.
I know. It's like
my own wife would be like, "Oh, you got a new podcast out?" And then she'd listen, and then she'd be back in a few minutes. She's like, "Oh, that was pretty good."
you listened to the whole 2 hours already.
It was like 2 hours long. How did you listen to it in 20 minutes? Oh, I only listened to the beginning. As soon as you say, because we would come in with a part that said, "This week in sports," and as soon as that sounder comes on, my wife would just turn it off. And then to the point where if I would be listening to it to try and like get the show notes for the episode, I would be listening to it in the car, and as soon as that part, "This week in sports," then my own daughter, who's like 5 at the time, would be like, "Turn it off! I don't want to listen to it
no
anymore."
more sports. So-
Which, by the way, you might hear us say the word "sounders" every once in a while and be like, "What? What is that?" It's. I guess that's not an actual term in like the podcast biz. It's one we made up for just like
sound drops, sound bits,
sound drops, whatever.
Yeah. Sound bites or whatever you want to call them.
Danny we started saying,
sounders.
"Get this sounder or make this sounder," and then we were like, "Okay," and it just stuck. It caught on because that's what they should be called, is sounders. I literally, whenever I'm doing making the sounders on my laptop, I call in the file name. I'm like, "Blah blah 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 sounder."
So basically,
maybe we're the only episode with sounders.
Yeah.
Show.
Basically, what we do is each week we come together and just bring a topic that we really want to talk about. We form it. I guess we put it in the form of a question to go along with the fact that we called it Q Code, so we have to put it in the form of a question. It's like Jeopardy, so you just have to have that question mark there. But either way. Very exciting stuff today.
Speaking of Jeopardy, really quickly, have you guys seen the guy who's been killing it on Jeopardy the last couple weeks?
Is Jeopardy still going?
Yeah. So do you guys remember Ken Jennings? Like, is that 10, 15 years ago now? He has the record for most money won. I think it's like 2.5, or I can't remember, around 2 million or something. Anyway, but he won like 74 episodes in a row.
Oh man.
And
How many?
like 74 or something like that. But this guy now has, no one's ever won over $100,000 in one episode or something like that before. This guy has now done it 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And I mean, his streak is at like 10 right now. But with that, he's like the second all-time leading money winner on the show because he's won so much on a lot of the episodes. And his background is he's a sports bettor in Vegas.
I just wouldn't even want to play if I knew that. I mean, people like that ruin the game. I mean, I know that that's the purpose. Like, I mean, that's good for him. But everybody else coming on to that, like, oh man, like, why did I get chosen to go on now? Because I have to go up against this guy.
Well, see, you guys may or may not know me personally, but like Trav and Alan do, and I have this thing where I like to feel like I'm in the know with a lot of different things, and if I don't, I go out and research it. Well, Jeopardy is like my weak spot because I like to act like I know, but I don't really know. And it just comes out when I'm watching it because my wife likes to turn it on Netflix now when we're falling asleep.
That's right. It is on Netflix.
And so they'll ask a question and I'll just be like, what is kumquat? Or just something random.
What's kumquat?
I don't know.
Isn't it kumquat?
Isn't that like a fruit or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm wrong like 80% of the time, but I say it with such confidence that my wife just laughs at me every time because I'm just like, what is Mexico? And they're like, what is Spain? And they're like, correct. And I'm like, well, at least they both speak Spanish.
So now I just totally lost my train of thought. But yeah, we do have a good show today. We've got 3 different topics, very different things. So we're going to start off first with Danny, who is going to be asking the question, if you could explore infinite possibilities at every decision point in life, would you? Where did you come up with this question?
I don't know. I was just thinking like, if I could do this, would I want to do it? And it just started from there, just kind of a random thought of like, man, I don't know specifically if it was one certain thing or if I was just sitting there daydreaming or what, but I'm sure at some point I was just like, I wish I could go back and redo that, or, and then I'm like, well, if I had the opportunity to do this, and would I really want to, and would it be a blessing or a curse? So that's kind of where I came up with mine.
So you sure you weren't just watching Marvel or the Avengers, Doctor Strange, when he just sits there and he's like, I have just witnessed all the many millions of possibilities and we can win one of them.
Yes, but that's funny because I actually put that in here as one of my
examples or something.
Yeah. So actually, but I didn't think of the example until after I came up with the question. So
okay.
No, it wasn't directly because of that.
Yeah. Well, let's officially get this question started by playing Alan. Well, Alan has a little something
sounder.
For us.
I didn't just survive a wreck. I wasn't just blown up yesterday. I have been stabbed, shot, poisoned, frozen, hung, electrocuted, and burned.
Oh, really?
And every morning I wake up without a scratch on me, not a dent in the fender. I am an immortal.
So I came up with this question, which then made me think, where would it play out in pop culture and things that we have in, I guess you could say the world, but America, shows that we have here. So I thought of some possibilities or some examples, excuse me. You guys, if you guys think of anything else that I'm missing, let me know. But things that are examples of people being able to relive events over and over and over again, or have multiple chances at something, are that movie clip that you just heard, Groundhog Day. It's one of my favorite movies as a kid. I don't know why. It always intrigued me. Like the thought of of being able to have multiple chances at living a day and trying to perfect things. And actually, now that you say it, it is coming back to me how I came up with this question. Because I watched the movie Naked on Netflix. Did you guys watch that movie?
No.
It's like Marlon Wayans, and he's like getting married, but he wakes up in an elevator naked.
Okay, I think so now this brings up another question. Of all the many things on Netflix for you to watch, why did you choose that one?
Well,
Intriguing title.
yeah. Well, I read the description. I was like, oh, I like things that are about the same day over and over again, just to see how they will do it. So, I mean,
It hasn't been done a million times.
Like that. What was that? Recent in the last 2 years horror movie.
It's called Happy Death Day.
Yeah,
There's
Happy
two
Death
of them.
Day. Yeah, I heard there's a second. I watched the first one with my sister and brother-in-law in Arizona, and it was I don't know. It entertained me for the time being, but then it's nothing I would ever want to watch a sequel to ever.
is Happy Death Day have to do with
Yeah, she keeps getting murdered over and over.
She has
and
to-
She's trying to freaking survive. And
She has
not
to
get
figure
murdered.
out who the killer is and stop him before he kills
Yeah.
her.
Oh, but like every time her brain is erased, like her memory is erased.
No. She just
Wakes up,
doesn't know who the murderer is because she's like
got him. They have a
somebody
mask.
in a mask or something like that. But yeah,
Oh, maybe I'll have to watch that one. 'Cause
Oh, that sounds. That
let me
sounds
write that
really
down.
good.
Happy
she's just basically
Death
trying
Day.
to stop being murdered.
Well, I didn't know that because I had Groundhog Day, Naked, which is about a dude who's naked in an elevator on his wedding day, and he has to figure out how to get to. But it's more like instead of his being a day, it's an hour. He has 1 hour before everything resets, and he has to somehow get to the wedding and have everything be perfect for this hour to finally stop starting over. The other one is The Day After Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. Isn't that what it's called?
The Day After Tomorrow. Oh, yes.
Like where he's like a
Yeah,
soldier.
Yeah. Yep.
And he keeps
Emily Blunt and
Yeah.
Tom Cruise.
and he keeps dying.
Yeah, that was I like
No,
that
The Day
one. That
After
was a good-
Tomorrow.
Oh no, not
Isn't
Day
that
After
the-
Tomorrow
Is that the Frozen
It's
one?
Yes.
The Edge of Tomorrow.
The Edge of Tomorrow. Okay, I wrote that.
You
down.
didn't even look it up.
I should have.
You just assumed.
The Day After Tomorrow sounded right, but it's The Edge of Tomorrow.
The Day After Tomorrow is that
That has-
disaster.
Yeah,
like,
it has Jake Gyllenhaal.
the
Where there's
world
like
ends.
a cold freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
that
New
comes
York.
through.
Dennis Quaid.
Yep.
And then the other one was what Trav mentioned, Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. And that's I think it's both in the standalone movie that he does, where towards the end of that
fell
movie,
asleep in that one because that was the most boring one.
I
to
love
me.
that one.
Good heavens.
It was good. But towards the end, probably because I got to see it towards the end, he got to go fight. I don't fully get the whole inner workings of all the Marvel stuff, but there's a character at the very end that he has to go. It's like a giant head, and he keeps going to wherever dimension this thing is, and he has the time stone. What is it called?
The Time Stone?
The Infinity Stone. The time Infinity Stone, and he keeps rewinding time over and over and over, on a loop. So no matter how many times that thing kills him, he comes right back, and drives him insane, and that's how he wins. And then, of course, the famous scene in Infinity War when he's like, I just went through all 8 million possibilities or whatever, and there's one in which we can win.
There is one other movie that I can think of that does the whole repeat thing. I think there's a few of them, but one that I actually really enjoyed is called 1201, and it's essentially Groundhog Day, but it's one guy that it's because of this machine that somehow he got connected to it, and that threw him in the loop. But then it was all about trying to make sure that stopped. But of course, there's a love story in it, so it's very much like Groundhog Day, just not a comedy.
Yeah.
So
Wait, I think I've seen this before. Is it they have Polaroids or something?
I don't know. Polaroids.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie. I swear it's something to do with like time travel or
Just
something.
that there's a Polaroid in it.
Well, no, like there's like a wall of Polaroids or something, if I remember right, in whatever movie I'm thinking of, and they can see like, this picture kept getting taken every day because they kept going back or something.
Oh, maybe
Like, was the machine kind of like a big machine, like in an apartment?
no.
Okay, we're probably thinking.
It was with a big tech company that did something. Anyway,
No.
I don't know. I've always, I'll give any like movie like Groundhog Day or like Repeating Days over and over or any time travel movie a shot. Like, I just love.
Ooh, there's another one on Netflix.
What?
Keep going. It's not necessarily reliving the day over. Well, I mean, it kind of is. It's just this guy is able to time travel through a photo booth, and he keeps going back to try and like hook up with this girl that he has a crush on, but it just keeps. So then he lives that day when he meets her over and over again because that's what sets the future in motion, and so then he'll return to the present time. And just to see how it ends up, to see if he's with her. And he's like, never with her.
I think it's funny how like a lot of those time travel, like it's a writer's job to like come up with the most interesting story possible. And a lot of the times all they come up with are love stories. Like, oh, I'm going to try and get this girl and I can do it multiple times. And that's like the extent of it. It's like, come on.
Well, maybe
You really had time travel? That's the thing that you would do is go and hit on a girl and try and be with that girl?
It's called...
if you're lonely enough, I guess.
It's called When We First Met. It is on Netflix.
Wait, who's in that? Is that
It's Adam Devine. He's the guy... Here. Hold on. Sorry, peeps.
But no,
This is
I just
him.
wanted to say, who is Adam Devine?
From Workaholics. If you've ever watched Workaholics. Freaking hilarious.
I mean, this is kind of different, but like the Butterfly Effect, the original one, that one was awesome. I loved that movie.
that was pretty? Was that Ashton Kutcher? Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, there's some examples for you of similar ideas, I guess, of living infinite possibilities or being able to explore infinite possibilities or the same day over and over again. So, which then made me think about, naturally, Murphy's Law. I think, Alan, I don't know if you mentioned this on the episode or before we started recording, but basically what Murphy's Law states is anything that can happen will happen. What most people think it is anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Do you know, is one of those what you've thought it was, Trav?
What?
Murphy's Law?
Yeah.
I had a dog named Murphy. So no.
And his law was he went outside and pooped every morning at 6 a.m.
He was
So
the-
for
he's the
him,
good
everything that
dog.
could go right went right. For you, everything that could go
But no,
wrong
I've
went wrong.
heard the same. Like a lot of people say, anything that can go wrong will go wrong is Murphy's Law. But like, I guess you said that's not correct.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, that's a sub portion of it because if everything that can happen does happen, then that includes everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah, but it's not only, it's usually used in like a negative sense, but it's actually neither negative nor positive.
I
It's
think
just
that's actually
anything or
everything on the movie Interstellar. I think Matthew McConaughey's character says that, doesn't he?
I think so, yeah. I think he does mention that. But anyway, so what this does is then it kind of opens up the like infinite realities. Alan touched on this before we started recording. We probably won't go into this too deep. I think this could be like an entire another episode and another question, but it could touch on the idea or the topic of like infinite realities branching off at every decision point if you're making decisions that change the future outcome of everything. Like, is that kind of what you were talking about earlier?
Yeah. Sorry, I just stopped listening for a second there. Yeah.
You guys have both checked out on me so far. Trav with his dog Murphy, and
You do realize that we just both checked out as you just asked us a random question that we were not prepared for. So,
Well, I'm sorry, Trev.
it's really more like you are. You're just trying to find out if we're listening, so you ask us a question and then we don't answer it, so that's your answer.
But no, I was like trying to adjust the levels of the volume of our recording and stuff too, and then realized you were asking me a question like right at the end.
Oh, okay.
What was your question, real quick?
So, do you wish that you could go back and relive that moment and make a different decision?
Sure, why not?
No, I was just asking you about the whole idea of the multiverse and just infinite realities. Every decision point breaks off into a new reality, and that was like kind of, and I said that was a whole concept that we could probably talk about at another.
Yeah, it is. It's like it's a lot to get into, but there is like an actual
Well,
theory
it is
that
infinite. So I think it's safe to say there is a lot to get into when discussing multiple universes.
in the realm of physics, there are several avenues of getting at where you end up with the whole multiverse, infinite universes theory and stuff. And like one is just, I'll really quickly sum it up. Basically, the Big Bang, our Big Bang, is just one of infinite Big Bangs that happened due to the inflation theory that happened with the Big Bang. Like, if inflation didn't all stop at once everywhere and it just stops in pockets, then it keeps going in other pockets. And then when those stop, that's a new Big Bang, and it just keeps going forever. So we're just one of infinite Big Bangs in one universe. And then, like, anything that can happen in any universe, any laws of physics you want, does exist somewhere, since there are an infinite amount of universes.
They all have different laws of physics.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's go into, I have a question for you guys to be prepared for, and then I will go through some of the things that I thought about, and then you guys can kind of answer what you have. But what are the pros and cons of having this ability or having this curse, I guess, depending on where you come down on the whole idea. But some of the pros that I thought about, if you were able to explore infinite possibilities at every decision point, would be you could avoid making huge mistakes in your life, because if you ever found a spot that you're like, wow, I made a big mistake, you could always go back and erase it, basically, and make sure that you may always make a good decision. Another pro I came up with was could potentially experience guilty pleasures without consequence. So, like, I could go and have as much freaking ice cream and cake as I wanted, and then if I feel really sick, I would just be like, okay, go back, and now I feel fine again, and I'm not fat. And, I mean, you could use your imagination for a lot of the guilty pleasures that you could experience if you were able to go make your decisions repeatedly or repetitively over and over again. Another one I thought of is you could realistically pursue perfection, because right now people are like, don't try and be perfect because you can't be perfect. But if you had infinite chances, I guess sooner or later you could try to be perfect, right?
I guess I look at it as how many tiny decisions do we make every single day that we don't even know that we make?
Yeah. Subconscious.
So are we saying that, like, I am literally going, I just feel like that's a lot of effort.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
That's just too many decisions that I don't want to make.
No, and you're right. I think that's definitely like a con. But I have one other pro, and then why don't you guys see if there's any pros that you guys have or you can think of to add to this. But another pro I thought about was being able to live all these things over and over again and experience these things could help you understand the complexities of humanity and the inner workings of life better than anyone else. Like, you would be the foremost expert on relationships and dynamics and how people and act and react and everything, because you've experienced so much. You've seen every single situation occur over and over again.
Because I could test, like, how many hairs would I have to pull out of Danny's head repeatedly before he just breaks and murders me? Be like, 1, nope. 2, nope. 3? Well, now he's murdered me. That's a very. It's kind of a short
hairs.
fuse.
I could give you the answer to that. It's when you first start reaching over. So you don't even get the 1.
And then I just go back and I'm just like, Danny, I know something about you that you don't even know about you.
What could drive you to murder? 3 hairs?
And so, yeah, in essence, I could control you. I could get to know you so much better than you even know you. I could literally control anything you do. I know what you would love. I know what you would hate. I could steer your life.
Yep.
To
So,
do
I mean,
whatever.
it's interesting that you take that concept in a direction of control and power, sounds like. I was thinking of it in more like I could be more compassionate and understanding because I would just understand why humans do the things that they do because I've had so much experience seeing with every decision that I make how people react to that. Trav, any other pros that you can think of or
No,
any?
honestly, I don't want any part of it. Like, I would not want any part of it.
So maybe you're going to be more, more on the con
I was
side.
waiting for. Did we get to the cons yet?
No, I'm
Okay,
just going to go to the cons.
'cause, yeah,
Unless anyone has any more pros.
I have 0 pros.
I mean, pros would just be it would. I would use it kind of as a source of entertainment. It would be fun. It would because if there's no consequence, it's.
could I flip it on and flip it off?
well,
Yeah, you can choose when you go back. What decision?
I mean, there's the full-fledged version where it's technically no, like every decision point. But and that's kind of where I was first going with the question.
So
but
that's-
as I thought about it,
that's
I'm
the
like,
premium
you would
subscription.
literally get to your first decision point in life and never move past that because it's infinite. So you could never explore every single
Exactly.
possibility. So I had to rein it in a little bit, and I have a
It's like
couple
when
of
I'm a baby. It's like, do I take a crap right now or not? And then I just
you never just
I just never poo. Because
or you poo repeatedly.
See, yeah, because
it never ends.
Yeah, because
Like,
there's so many. There's an infinite possibility. So it'd be like, not only do I take a crap right now, but do I take a crap right now and scratch my left cheek? Do I take a crap right now? and
yes, that's
scratch
what I'm
my
saying.
right cheek?
I want 0 part of any of this.
Do I take a crap right now and also drool while doing it?
so that's like the extreme, but then obviously that would
Do
you
I
would
take a
literally
crap
be
right
blocked
now?
from being able to explore this any further anyway because it would just be infinitely long from the very first decision point. So yes, and I actually have some thought experiments just to run by you guys that will kind of more encapsulate or limit how you would have these abilities that may help you better make a decision on like, well, if it was this situation, maybe I would, or if it was this situation, I definitely wouldn't.
Yeah.
But some cons I have is you could be driven insane by having to relive the same moment over and over again, which is partially like it feels like the part of like all of these like Groundhog Day, that Naked movie, The Edge of Tomorrow even. It just feels like at some point the characters that keep having to live this time over and over again at some point feel like they're always about to crack. And, like it's driving them nuts because at first it's like, oh, this is kind of cool, but then eventually it's like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, I think the thing in those movies is like they don't know how or when it's going to ever end, if it will end. But if you have control over it, then that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
If you're stuck in it, that sucks. If you're controlling it, that's cool.
Which true. That's a very good distinction between the two.
Yeah.
Another thought I had that would be a con is much as like on the one side I said you could have potential guilty pleasures that you could experience and then go back without any consequence. On the flip side, you could also experience terrible things that like literally would mess you up and give you like PTSD like symptoms. Like 'cause eventually if you do enough things, explore enough options, then you're going to run into stuff that you did not want to experience or see. And then that could mess you up and stick with you. Other things would be life could get super boring because you have no like consequence to your decisions, or there's no commitment when you decide something right now. Like sometimes part of like making a decision that's exciting is like, well, I either have to do A or I can do B, but whichever one I go with, I kind of have to stick with that path for now, and that's going to make a difference and determine the outcome that I'm going to be, or the path that I'm going to be on, right? So it can make things kind of interesting. And then finally, it'd be like, another con I thought of is just like, it could have drastic effects on people that are that are even unaware that these things are happening. Like if you go down one decision path and it causes the birth of some child, but then you decide, oh, I didn't like the outcome of that, and you go back and you make another decision and go down a different path, is that child then never born?
Yeah.
Or does somebody get hurt because you switched realities and now in this new reality or this new path they get hurt? You know what I mean?
That's what I was going to say is one of the cons is basically, I mean, I don't know if in this scenario I'm the only one who can do it or if everyone can. And if everyone can, that just gets super chaotic. But if I'm the only one that could do it, then basically I'm God to everybody else.
I saw this.
I am controlling everybody else's life.
I saw this YouTube video. Sorry, were you done? I didn't know if I cut you off or if you were ending.
Go on.
So I saw this YouTube video of this guy who had the power to rewind the moment. Like it could only go back like 3 minutes or something like that. And it's him sitting on this park bench. He's talking to this girl, and it's him just trying over and over again to ask her out or to basically get her to like him. And it just keeps showing him. It shows his failures, and then he'll be like, "Ah, crap!" And then it'll just hit rewind, and then it'll go back like 3 minutes. At the very end of the video, apparently every time he hits rewind, that self of him dies. And so that girl has to sit there and relive this guy's death over and over again. Because every time he goes back to try it again, the present that he left to go back into the past, still kept going forward.
It's like a different universe. It just branched off. That's still there.
Yeah.
So like she just is literally having a dude like fall over dead on.
Yeah, every single time. Well, I'll just have to try and find it.
But so, what you were saying was like you could go back and then you could make a decision and somebody's born, and then go back, redo it, and then that person's not born, which is, I mean, I think that's why you would have to have like a multiverse theory where it's branching off every time into a new universe, where that one, like you were saying, it's still going. That universe still exists with that baby being born, but then you're just creating a new universe without the baby being born. That makes sense.
But if you don't have that case and you're actually always in the same universe, then people wouldn't even be aware, I guess, that these things were happening.
Yeah.
But they would be. And if that's the case, then, I mean, it's a weird way to think about it. But, like, are you actually murdering people? Are you actually, like, committing crimes by doing this?
Okay, then let's just put it this way. I think there's just too many questions. And it's something I've said it before. I don't want any part of it. I feel like it would be the most lonely life ever because you're the one that's living this. Nobody else is.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like I'm in a situation, maybe I'm not in I'm not super rich. My car is permanently dented from the hailstorm last year that we had. I didn't get fixed. But I have a decent job. I love my family, and all of those things happen because and some of them were just happenstance, like I didn't choose to meet my wife. It just happened. But it happened because of random other choices that I made throughout my life. It happened because I chose to go to that location that morning. And if I had the power to go through infinite possibilities, would I make that choice? I hope I would, but what if there was, before I even got to that choice to where I met her, something else intrigued me and I took that road. So yeah.
Or it could be like as simple as like, oh, dang it, I got a freaking 60% on my test, I'm going to go back and do it again so I can get a better score. But for whatever reason, that choice when you were 14 years old changed the entire path of your life.
The butterfly effect.
Exactly.
And then you
never
meet your wife because for whatever reason, that one choice completely shifted the direction of your life.
We're talking about things that I do not want any part of.
That is the whole point of the movie Butterfly Effect, is like he keeps trying to change things to, I think he accidentally killed somebody. He wants to not do that, but then things just keep getting worse. Every time he changes another thing, it just gets worse and worse.
Exactly. So your question is, would I do it?
So, yeah, this is a I mean, obviously, and you're right, there's so many questions. There's no answer that's right or wrong to this. It's completely hypothetical. It's completely opinion-based. So, yes, if it were in the format of the way we've been talking about it, would you do it?
No.
Alan, would you do it?
I would. I would probably. I would have to say I hope that. I would hope that power would not ever cross my hands. Like, I would never get my hands, because I would probably say the altruistic thing, like, no, I don't want to do. But then if I had it and I was just bored one day, who's to say I wouldn't just be like, well, one time, let's go see what it's like. And then
it's like a drug.
And then that could just change who knows what. Like maybe as long as I had a baseline that I knew how to get it exactly back to how it like normally was before, then I would do it, as long as I could always come back to exactly how it was.
Let's put it,
and undo it all.
Okay, I will say this. If I had that power last week, I would go back and change stepping on your dog's bed. Because he got very angry at me.
But then you wouldn't have gotten our cookies.
I would not have gotten cookies.
Once I heard that you were getting cookies sent to you, I was like, wonder if Trav is going to like instigate another attack this week so he can get more cookies.
Well, when I got the text from your sister, it was, she apologized.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Trav was attacked by Alan's dog last week after we recorded. It was amazing to see Trav be able to move his legs like noodles and avoid being bit.
He was basically just doing that like high step, like in football practice when they're going through the tires with the high step. That's basically what he did.
But when I got the text, it was like, asking if I was okay. I was like, yeah, he didn't get me. You didn't touch me. I did run my shin into your coffee table. That pissed me off. But other than that, I'm like, I'm fine. And your sister was like, well, what's your address so I can send you some cookies just to, just to make up for it. And I was like, in that case, he ripped my whole leg off. And I need like 10 boxes of cookies, or continuous cookies.
I need
showing up.
I need a box of cookies every day while I'm.
If that's all it took to apologize for ripping your whole leg off, I'd be like, all right,
cookies.
Do you not
10 boxes of cookies?
Have you not had crumble cookies?
Oh, crumble is delicious. Yeah.
Okay.
I work in an ER, and like once every week or two, they just anything they had left over, they'll come and drop them off at the whole ER. So sometimes you get like friggin' 35 cookies just dropped off.
So good.
They're big, rich, and delicious. But quickly to wrap this whole conversation up, though. So if I put a little parameter on it, so what if I said you have the situation, but anytime that you're going off exploring these alternate options or experiences, you're still aging at the same rate that you are in life.
See, I was gonna ask about that. Then no, I would not. Like, because I would be wasting my time.
I don't think there's
trying to get through like 3 moments of my life, and I would, if it was infinite, like I would be like, that's my entire life would be in those 3 moments.
Yeah,
I'd be like, and it'd be weird because I would keep showing up like 30 years older at the same moment, and people are like, what the. This is just insane. You just literally aged 30 years in a split second in front of my eyes. Like, if it was your crapping baby story, what if you spent like 15 years on it and like all of a sudden you're a crapping 15-year-old baby?
Yeah. I don't think there's any scenario you could tell me that I'd be like, oh, yeah, sure, I'd do that.
Yeah.
Well, then this one's probably not going to help because it's kind of more of a negative. But they have a thing what they call decision fatigue. Like even, I mean, in real life right now, as you make decisions throughout the whole day, like that's why it's harder. Like if you go on a diet, it's easier to stick to that diet in the morning. But as you get through your whole day, you go to work, you have play with your kids, you do this, you do that, you get decision to fatigue, which gets you to the point where they call it willpower, basically. Like you don't have the willpower anymore. And so now you get to 8 o'clock at night and now you're like, F it, I'm just going to have a freaking piece of cake or whatever, right? So it's the same kind of thing. But if you have to if you get decision fatigue from going and experiencing and exploring all these avenues, then that could be a problem too. That I mean, I wouldn't like to have that where it's basically now I'm making poorer and poorer decisions every time I make a decision. And then finally, if you could set a time limit on how far back you can go. So basically, like if you could say, okay, I can go back, but I can only go back 1 hour or 1 minute or whatever. What time limit would you put on it in order to be like, okay, because you don't necessarily want to go 30, like Alan said, 30 years into the future and then be like, okay, I got to go back and make a decision, change this decision I had 30 years ago, and now you got to relive that 30 years again.
Probably 15 to 30 seconds. And the reason I come to that conclusion is because whenever I'm watching a TV show on Amazon Prime or something, they have that, you can just push back once and it's 15 seconds every time you push back the back button. And I find myself, if it's longer than a minute ago that I what did they say back then or whatever, I'm just I don't care. But if it's 15 or 30 seconds, I'll rewind it that much and rewatch it to understand what they just said. That I missed. Does that make sense?
So basically within 15 or 30 seconds, you should know whether or not you need
if
to
I
go back.
really want to go back, if I accidentally just murdered somebody, I probably know I want to undo that pretty quickly. You know?
But what if you were in shock for 31 seconds? You're like, no!
Dang it. Might want some overflow time.
Nah,
You just don't want it,
I
period.
don't. Nope.
Yeah. Well, if I had to have it and I picked a time, I think it would be a shorter time frame. I mean, a day at most, but maybe more like an hour. Long enough that I can be in shock for a little bit and then still make the decision. But yeah, I think that's pretty good synopsis of my hypothetical question.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next question. We spent quite a bit of time on that one.
I'm going to keep this segment relatively short. I'm going to try and do it in 10 to 15 minutes. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. So Alan, if you've been listening, know that he is a
space junkie
fanatic, connoisseur of the cosmos.
Yeah, I like that.
Dang, son.
I think that that's a good one, but just flip it, just like Cosmos Connoisseur.
No. You ruined it.
Yeah.
How do I always ruin everything?
Because you take what I say
wish-
and you changed it.
Yeah. Can you go back and change that right now?
Yes, because I have 1 hour to go back. I could actually technically go back to the beginning of this podcast and start it over. But
I think we're at about the 15-second mark, so it's past me what I can do.
I think, so I think what Trav was just about to get into, but I don't think Trav quite knew this part of it. So originally, Alan's question was, when will the first person set foot on Mars, and when will humans begin to colonize on Mars? But Alan's going to cut that question into 2 parts because it's such a big question that we don't have enough time on one episode to focus on all of it. So today he's going to focus on when will the first person set foot on Mars, and then he'll focus on the rest of it in the next episode.
Yeah. And okay, so what I'm going to do is start this off with a little sounder
Yay, sounder.
that I got. You might recognize this from the movie Mars Attacks.
That's some quality, writing.
I just like how it ends so abruptly. Just like halfway through one of his.
Well, I couldn't
Just
skip
stops.
off the whole movie. But
So
yeah,
Alan,
it's like the Emperor's New Groove, where they're squeak squeakity squeak squeakums. You owe me a new acorn.
So do you have, as far as like when will the first person set foot on Mars? I mean, what's your opinion? What's the opinion that's out there?
Well, my opinion is, and well, first of all, I was like, okay, what are windows? Because there are certain windows that most likely, when you're sending humans to Mars, especially at the beginning, you want to time it so Mars and Earth are the closest, right? You've
And
got
that's-
limited resources, limited fuel. You don't want it to take forever.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. So is that like every 2 years or something like that? There's a window
Yeah.
that where Mars is closer than it
Every
is?
26 months. So every 2 years, 2 months.
Okay.
Basically. And this last one was in 2018. So the next one will be 2020,
sometime.
2022, 2024. I know it's still 2024, but then I don't know which point, like, that extra 2 months
It flips to the
goes
odds.
to the odd numbers. I think it might be 2025 or something. But sorry, are you guys hearing some static? No. Okay.
Nope. It's all
But-
good.
So so I've heard like by 2033, like people have talked about NASA being able to do it, and I don't know what Danny is making. He's making signals over there about something. But anyways, what's your question? Your next question?
So
I got too
what's-
many distractions
What's
going
like
on.
the distance difference? So like if they go during that window that you talk about, the two or every 26 months or whatever, how far away is Mars at that point versus if they were to go during a different time frame?
That's a good question. I think Mars comes to within under 40 million miles of Earth.
Like some of the figures I've seen, it looks like it's about 34 million.
34 million.
Yeah,
Okay.
as well. I read, but I'm assuming that they're only talking about the window that it's closest. So
Yeah, that's at its closest. At its furthest, it would be when we're on the opposite sides of the sun, it's the orbit or how our distance from the sun plus Mars's distance from the sun, which we're 93 million miles away. Mars is what, 140? I don't know the exact. I think it's 140-ish million miles away. So what is that? 230 million miles total?
from the sun.
No, if you're adding our orbit or our distance from the sun plus Mars's distance from the sun, if we're on the opposite sides of the sun, then it's like 230 million miles compared to, 34 million miles?
Oh, okay. So it's more of an crossing orbit thing. So it's just more like when the Earth and Mars are orbiting almost in line, like
Yeah, when
next to
the
each other.
Earth, Mars, and Sun are all lined up
Okay.
is when we want to go.
That makes sense.
Or maybe launch like a little bit before that.
Yeah. And how long does it take for? Well, I guess this is a subjective question because it depends how fast we go. But currently, if we were to send someone to Mars, how long would that take?
Current projections are about 6 months. So that's an issue. 6 months seems like, not that long, but 6 months, half a year, just in space in a little rocket ship or capsule with a few other people, and you have no access to any outside resources. That means you have to carry everything with you. Everything you need. You need water, you got to carry water. You want to save on how much water you have to take, you have to have like a 100% recycling water system to where you can just constantly. Drink water, pee it out and drink it again.
Which
You have to
coming
have-
up with some of those, I think.
Yeah, they are. You have to have oxygen system, life support system that will not fail.
This is why in the movies everybody goes into cryo sleep.
That's
So-
true. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think
do they
we're
call
going to
that?
get there by then.
They should just do that.
Cryostasis or something.
Yeah. Like on Alien
Yep.
and all the other movies that you.
What's the
All
one?
the basically, if it's a space movie, somebody goes into cryostasis.
Yeah. What's the one that just came out like a couple of years ago? Passengers. Is that what it's called? With-
Oh yeah, passengers. Then they wake up on one of them wakes up on accident.
What's his name?
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt's character. Yeah, wakes up and then he's like, well,
He gets bored, doesn't he? So he wakes up the other girl.
yeah. He's like, well, she's pretty good looking and cool. So I'm gonna say that. Yeah, I don't know what happened with your cryostasis machine, but you just woke up. So now I got to hang out with you. But yeah, but without that, I could see where that would be a problem. So speaking of problems, what other issues would you have if you're trying to trying to go from Earth to Mars? There's obviously more than just the time and the timing of when it's the closest that you have to deal with. One of those things, and maybe you can elaborate on this, that I've read about is cosmic radiation.
Yeah, cosmic
So-
rays. Yeah.
Maybe explain that a little bit of why that is such a problem when you're trying to travel to Mars.
So when you're traveling cosmic rays are everywhere, constantly in space, even in empty space. The sun and every other star in the galaxy, they're putting out what they call cosmic rays, which are, I don't know if it includes also the light that it puts out, which there's harmful light, like UV light will tear apart atoms and tear electrons off of atoms just because it has so much energy in it. But you get particles like protons, which are like the nucleus of hydrogen atoms, just protons traveling at close to the speed of light. And it's a fairly big particle, relatively speaking. And if it just smashes into your DNA, into your cells, it can do some damage. I don't know if you would actually feel it because it's still pretty small, but
So is this more
you could easily get cancer. I think statistically, airline pilots, there is a significant increase in their risk of cancer because they're up higher in the atmosphere, so less of those cosmic rays are filtered, and they're getting hit more with cosmic rays.
Yeah, not just them, but isn't it also flight attendants
Well, anybody up there
constantly?
for more longer than other people.
But for more of a description that maybe more people can relate to. So it's more like radiation poisoning. Is that kind of what is occurring when you're exposed? Because on Earth, we're protected because we have an atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in space, you're not protected with an atmosphere. So that's why it's so much more of an issue and a danger. And then even if you get to Mars, Mars doesn't have nearly the atmosphere. It's not as thick.
It's like 1%.
Yeah.
The atmosphere that we have.
So you're more exposed there too. I read something, I think it says 1 day on Mars is like being exposed to 2.5 months worth of cosmic radiation that you would be exposed to on Earth.
Yeah. I don't know if it's radiation poisoning. I don't know the ins and outs of how that works exactly too well. I just know that it's not a good thing when particles are smashing into your body particles and breaking them apart, especially in your DNA. So I know it can definitely cause cancer because it's literally breaking your DNA apart and causing mutations in it.
Why do we even want to go to Mars?
Well, so that's why when you
Why
get
is
to
this such a big deal?
well,
You don't want to experience
no.
one way to get around this is they could put a layer of ice into like the outer hull of the spacecraft or whatever, because water and ice is like a super good shield against cosmic
natural.
rays. Yeah, natural. So if you did ice, easy to keep it cold because it's space. You have a lot of coldness at your disposal. So easy to keep it in ice form, and ice, like if a micrometeorite happens to hit, it's not going to just like your water drains out. It just, you get a little hole in the ice and patch it up. Does that make sense?
That's kind of, I didn't know that was one of the ways that they would deal with that. But
yeah,
that's kind of cool.
That's why when you get to Mars, you got to have either the same type of stuff, like a shield against it, until you could terraform Mars and make the atmosphere thicker. But that's a whole nother story. And this we'll get into more next week when we talk about colonizing Mars. But at first, you're going to have to probably find somewhere underground to build your first civilization.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for this. This all sounds really fun.
But there are advantages of doing it.
Should we sign you up for the first flight to Mars? Trav?
Oh, yeah. I want to be an underground Mars hermit who will most likely get cancer and die. If space doesn't kill me, the cancer will.
Hey,
So,
space
Trav,
is hostile. Space isn't easy.
Let's say you get up there, you make it on the dangerous journey in a small capsule for 6 months, traveling, you get to Mars, you survive, you have protection from the radiation enough that you survive, you don't quite get cancer or anything like that. You get up there.
Don't quite get it.
You get up there, but now you're on Mars and you're having fun because
Why would I be having fun?
Because there's a lot less gravity on Mars. So
That's literally like 10 minutes of fun.
you first get to go up there and you're just like, wee! You're jumping around. You feel like a superhero. But eventually, the fact that you're there, if you're there for a while, another issue that you could run into is the fact that Mars does have reduced gravity. And do you know what percentage is it 38% of Earth's gravity is what Mars has?
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Maybe
We could be
about
wrong.
40%, I think.
We could be wrong. Correct us.
I know the moon
if we
is
are.
1/6.
I'm just doing off the top of my head. But yeah, so it's something like that. But anyway, you have this reduced gravity. If you have that much reduced gravity on your body's going to start adjusting to this new reduced gravity. So what would you say? So say you spent a year up there on Mars at this reduced gravity. Would you want to come home to Earth?
Yes. What kind of a question? That was the longest question.
But like,
You could have just asked me.
so
Just say, like, you go to Mars. Do you want to come home? Yes. Yes, I do.
okay. So maybe Alan knows where I'm going with this. What would happen to you if you just came home to Earth?
With our current technology, you'd be like Mr. Glass, I would assume. Your bones would be very weak.
Okay. All the more not to go to Mars. Okay? Who wants to go to Mars?
We all do.
No,
For
we don't.
Humanity.
No. Okay. I'm going to say this, and then you can finish up however you want to do, because we do have to get to the next one before we finish today. But when I was at my last job,
Yeah.
I was the recruiter, and I asked this question that I like to put into the application. And that is, what makes you stand out above from everybody else? And then I like to put in like hint, don't just tell me that you're a hard worker and that you're dependable. Like, we know that. Okay. I mean, we don't really know that, but that's not what I'm looking for.
That's the standard answer.
Yeah. Don't give me the standard answer. This is your opportunity to be creative. Tell me what I'm looking for is I want them to open up and give me a little bit more about themselves, not just, I'm really hard worker. I love this work and I will be the best
quick
for
learner.
you. I'm a quick learner. Yeah. None of that crap. That was all the other questions. So this one kid, he answered with, I want to be amongst the first to colonize Mars. But he went on and on. I actually wrote it down. I know I have my book somewhere because I started writing down all these weird answers. And his was by far one of the weirdest. And unfortunately, because I talked to him on the phone and I set him up. I actually didn't think he would be a good employee, but I really just wanted to interview him. So I was like, all right, well, bring you in because you said you wanted to colonize Mars, and I want to see what type of person you are. Douche never showed.
What? Well, he's freaking colonizing Mars.
Yeah,
right now.
no, he's up in the clouds, man. He's not colonizing.
Well, that's on the way to Mars. You got to go through the clouds.
But so here's the thing. I would refuse to be one of the first. I would not want to be the first people to go to Mars at all.
It'd be crappy to be one of the first.
I would
have a really big question, but this has to wait until next week because it's really more with the
colonizing
part. I just don't see
so you're not going to ask it?
No, I'm waiting till next week. But I'm just prefacing.
I think, Trav, and I honestly think just knowing you, and by now maybe the listeners are starting to get to know like the different personalities that we each have on the show. But knowing you, I think you will enjoy the colonizing Mars conversation more than the conversation we've had today because, in my opinion, it's got some of the more interesting things and like the fun just things to think about.
And let's just say getting there, even though that's super hard too, is 1,000 times easier than colonizing Mars. Okay, I'm just gonna say that. I wholeheartedly believe we can get to Mars and even put a human on the surface of Mars for a little while in the next 15 years. But colonizing it, that's like, I don't know if that's gonna happen anytime, even if in our lifetimes. I'll just say that. But
so I think what I saw is NASA, because this kind of answers your question, your direct question, Alan, was when will the first person step foot on Mars? Well, NASA has put out dates ranging from what I could see from my research of anywhere somewhere in the late 2030s to the early 2040s is kind of like the window in which it looks like NASA is targeting, partially due to just like them building up these programs, but partially due to politics, and it's just harder. For
politics
them to get,
sucks for NASA.
Harder for them to get things done. On the flip side, though, private industry and the most famous company right now for that is SpaceX, owned by Elon Musk, the CEO. Is he still the CEO of Tesla? Or I can't remember what happened with that whole situation.
I think so. What happened?
There was
semantics.
We'll get that's different for a different day. But anyway, he has a plan to send a cargo ship up to Mars in 2022, which is just 3 years away, and then send the first, if that's successful, send the first manned mission to Mars in 2024. So we literally could be within 5 years of seeing a human step foot on Mars, which for me, I mean, I'm not as big of a cosmic connoisseur, as Trav says,
connoisseur of the cosmos is what we said.
Man.
But
don't try and interject your own.
But I think that's pretty awesome. Like I, as much as I wouldn't want to be the first person on Mars or one of the early settlers of Mars, much like it sounds like we've established that Trav wouldn't want to be, and it sounds like Alan wouldn't want to be either. Yeah. But I would like to be alive and see on like a cool like new special news bulletin or like whatever they call it, like when breaking news bulletin, or
like how they covered it with Apollo,
like with the moon,
but like HD TV and better sound than a cutting out radio.
Yeah,
that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Then they come back and we're like, dude, why were you making like sounds with your mouth? We have like perfect quality audio. Which, speaking, one last question, then we'll move on to Traz, but how long does it take for like, if I were
to get back and forth?
If I were to talk to you, you were on Mars, I was on Earth, how long would it take for me to get an answer from you once I ask a question?
Well, if we were 34, you said 34 million miles apart.
I mean, if you want, we can answer this on the next show. If you don't, I just thought maybe you had the answer right off the top of your head. I want to say it's something like 14 minutes would be my my first thought. But if you don't have the
The
answer,
answer is 182 seconds, so 3 minutes and 2 seconds, or closer to 183.
Still, that's like, when you're watching those sports interviews or whatever, and there's that like 2-second delay, and it's super annoying. But this one, they're just like, some guys like on Mars, they're like, all right, yeah, hey, Johnny, looks like, there's not a lot there, but tell us about the conditions. 3 minutes.
Well, actually, it'd be 3 minutes for your question to get there, and then 3 minutes.
So
for their
6
response.
minutes.
Yeah, okay.
6 minutes before he's just like, just a lot of rocks and dust.
They're like, what?
Pretty sure I have cancer now.
but then he has to stand there for 6 to 7 minutes.
I'm not coming back.
for you to answer it.
I'm not coming back because if I do, I'll be like Mr. Glass. So I don't know why I really agreed to come on this. It was my death sentence.
So Trav,
Well, now I'm in the history books. Whoop-de-doo.
Well, maybe this will help convince you to go. But also, one thing that they found in early studies and experiments that they've done is that microbes and diseases, infections are much worse in space than they are here on Earth because of the lack of gravity. They're able to adjust and alter faster, and then precautionary measures, medicine and stuff like that just don't work anymore.
So why would I want to?
So
Is this a pro?
Would that help you also make a decision
To stay?
So now you can go up there, get cancer. You can't really get treated.
Yeah. What is this? What kind of stupid decisions are we making? Our taxes are paying for this crap.
Well, when we settled the new world, when we came to America, there was a lot of death and like things in the obstacles,
Destruction.
We'll talk about this next week. I'm going to come up with.
But are
tons
you
of
like, why did we ever come to America?
No, because this is all on Earth. So we got.
All right, let's move on. Thanks, Alan, for that lovely question. Now,
You're giving me a lot to think about.
But
A lot of ways
Trav,
to tell you how stupid it is.
Trav's question is, I'm gonna.
Hang on,
I know
hang on.
Trav wanted.
Wait. Can we tell Trav's story about Mars real quick?
My story about Mars?
When you thought you saw Mars.
How about next week?
Okay, next week.
We'll talk about it next week.
So I'm gonna let Trav kind of ask the question because I know he might want to tweak the way that it was worded a little bit. So what was your question for this week, Trav?
So it's basically what scares you, and the reason why I came up with this question started off really stupid. But I was at work, went to the bathroom, and I'm just gonna be frank. It was a number 2. Went to flush, and the water just started rising, and I started panicking. Like, what do I do? There's no plunger in here. And I'm stuck in this stall, and I'm afraid, and I just didn't. Also, because I know the janitor, and I don't want to just, like, leave and have him be like, what the crap, man?
Like literally,
who did this?
crap?
I saw you leave last. You know it was you. So anyway, so, like, all that stuff started scaring me. So I started thinking, like, what are, like, all the other times that that's a little unconventional, but yeah. So I wanted to kind of talk about the times that I've just literally been scared.
And what scares not just you, but
not necessarily like phobias.
and
Yeah.
people.
And then I want to find out, like, from you guys, tell a story about when you were just scared. But we'll start with this first. Okay, now I don't want anybody to say, because one of you are going to say something about what that clip was.
I was just about to say it.
Don't say it. And I want you guys to go on and comment on our Instagram or Facebook or whatever what that
was from.
And then if you get it, congratulations. Where this is the beginning of a podcast, we literally have no
prizes
funds
right now.
but
maybe eventually we'll have like T-shirts.
Give you a pat on the back.
We can send out.
But so a few days ago, earlier this week, I had a dream, and I don't remember anything much about it. I'm not Danny. I can't literally remember full conversations I have in my dreams, every single little minute detail.
It's a special skill. I don't know why I have that ability, but I just do.
The only reason why I remember it is because it scared the crap out of me. And it was, I don't know where I was. All I remember, I was in this room, and there were just a bunch of friggin' spiders. And I don't have arachnophobia. I'm not like super scared of, like, I'm the guy, you know, in our house, like if there's a spider there, I'm going to go kill it, you know, or put it in a napkin and set it out into the world. Just kidding. I'll squish it. I'm not humane to spiders.
I have arachnophobia up the wazoo.
Okay. So some of these stories are probably going to freak you out. But yeah, and so I just remember one climbing up on my hand and biting like my middle finger. And for some reason, like in my dream, I mean, I know that like things can't actually hurt you in your dreams, but I feel like there's something hurt in my dream. Like I was like, ow! Like I could feel something, but
well, I think like even though you're like not physically necessarily being hurt on the outside world, but in your dream you can still feel pain.
Well, yeah.
Like,
but hey,
like, because pain ultimately is in your brain, like the signal.
So it just like my brain told me, oh, you got bit by a spider and now it hurts.
It's like a new rap. The pain is in your brain.
Yeah. But so I wanted to start out with a story from my childhood. One of the reasons why just spiders give me the heebie-jeebies. I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was younger than 12 because it's when I moved from this particular house. But so maybe like 10 years old. And I was home. It was after school. It was just me and my dad. And a couple days prior, I saw this spider, and I went and got my parents. And when I got back, because I wasn't going to go touch it. It was like a big old spider. And when I went and got my parents, came back, the spider was gone. And so, I don't know where it went. We looked for it, couldn't find it. Well, we are sitting in the kitchen. I'm sitting at the counter, I don't know, doing homework or something. My dad says, I'll be right back. I'm going to go down the street and get the mail, because we lived in a cul-de-sac, had to go down the street to a central box for everybody. And so I was like, all right. So he left. About 30 seconds after he left, I felt this tingle on my head. And you can pretty much figure out where it's going from here. But I didn't touch it because I was afraid something was on my head. Didn't know what it was, but also thought to myself, because I didn't feel anything after that. I was like, oh, it was probably just like, like when your hair moves or something, and it just kind of tickles or something. So I was like, it's probably what it was. But still, I was not going to touch the top of my head just in case. I was going to wait for my dad. So he got back, and he's looking at the mail, and I say, hey, Dad, is there something on top of my head? And he looks up from the mail, and his eyes just got so big. And he was like, don't move. I'm like, what? What is it?
Do you think he was messing with you at first?
Well, I don't know. I was like, okay.
Like, how old were you again?
Like 10.
10. Okay.
So then my dad just gets like a paper towel, and he brushes it off, and it falls on the counter. Now, in my memory, it is a giant tarantula. It was probably not a tarantula, but it was huge. It was one of the bigger spiders that I've seen.
Was it like a wolf spider?
It was probably a wolf spider, but it just seemed so massive. And like big enough that it wasn't just like a tiny spider in my head. It was just sitting on top. And my dad was like, oh my gosh, don't move.
Something you could feel the mass of.
Yes.
Like the weight of it.
Yes.
Is this why you wear hats all the time now?
Probably. Just to protect
yourself.
I actually really
spiders.
hate hair. Like I would go bald if I could. It's a weird thing. We'll talk about that later. Another episode.
You could just shave your head.
I could, but my wife likes me not being bald. So that's that one. Later on in life, after I was married, and my wife and I were in between homes. We're waiting for a home to open up for us, and so we needed to find a spot to live. So we lived in her parents' basement, and it had just flooded a couple weeks prior. Now, it wasn't all wet or anything like that, but there was still water damage. And every night I would go around the floorboards or just like where the floor meets the wall, and just in those crevices, there were tons of spiders, tons of wolf spiders. And I would just go and I would spray them with killer, and I'd just die.
Like in your house? Poison killer?
Yeah. Well, no, I think we didn't have that, so I think I just sprayed them with hairspray. But it did the trick. They are all like, sticky.
I don't know. Are wolf spiders kind of hairy, so you're just like kind of doing them a favor?
I don't know.
Hey, thanks.
But like, I haven't been this stylish in a long time.
So, and the thing is, because half of our stuff was in storage, and so we just had our mattress that was sitting on the floor.
Oh.
And so one night, my wife's asleep, I'm watching TV, and from the glow from the TV, I see this spider crawling across the top of our of the covers. And so I turn over and flip the light on, and I try and look for it, and it's gone.
I hate when they disappear. That happened to me once here. Oh, I seriously searched for an hour before I found it.
It's got to be.
Because I was like, I'm not going to not find it.
Well, so I never found it. Well, I lied. I didn't find it while the light was on. Flip the light off. All of a sudden, it's there again. It's like it appears in the dark.
It's only in the dark.
And it's crawling again. So I like hurry, flip the light on, and it's gone again. It's like, son of a... Ah! So I turn the light off, and there it is again. I'm like, all right, I'm not flipping the light on. I am just going to kill you here and now. And the choice that because I didn't want to move out of the bed. So I was like, I have to kill you with whatever is in my reach. And nothing was in my reach. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to kill you with my bare hands, but I can't kill you with my fingers because that's icky. So I just balled up my fist, and I was going to punch the hell out of it. And so I wind up and I just smack, and I killed it. But then immediately my wife sits up and she's grabbing her leg. And she's like, and it's kind of one of those like silent screams where she's like, and she just looks at me, and you could tell that like she was in so confused.
It's just like this abusive relationship.
She's so
that
tired and doesn't know like why all this pain just all of a sudden just shot through her body. And she looks over at me and she goes, "Why?" And so I just looked at her. I was like, "Babe, I'm so sorry. There was a spider." I didn't mean to punch you, but so
it was on her basically.
Yeah, but it
like on the blanket.
The times that I flipped the light on, it was going across my side, but I couldn't tell because we had like a couple blankets on there, so I couldn't tell where her leg was.
I thought you were going to say in the end that you finally figured out it was something that was just like from the glow of the TV that it wasn't a spider.
It was a spider, and then it just made me punch my wife. But
speaking of spiders, really quickly, just so a couple months ago, I wake up to something freaky in the fact that it's all of a sudden, you know how sometimes you just sense something? And then when you're sleeping. So I wake up from a dead sleep because I sensed something. And when I opened my eyes, it was my 13-year-old son and his friend. Like, he's also 13. I'm like, and his 13-year-old friend. But they're just standing there right next to my bed.
Yeah, there's nothing more creepy than somebody standing there watching you sleep.
And I'm like, what? And I'm like, kind of like, what's going on? He's like, Dad, there's a spider in my room. I'm like, what? They're like, it's huge. They're like, come and help us find it and kill it. So now I'm like half asleep. I go in there. I'm like literally like trying to look under everything, trying to like
kill it yourself.
Trying to find this stupid spider, but I cannot see it or find it or whatever. They're like, it ran under there. So ultimately I wanted to go back to bed. So what I did is I armed them both with like a 5-pound like dumbbell weight. And I said, here, just go to sleep with this. They both slept with a 5-pound dumbbell weight, waiting for the spider to come out so they could smash it.
It's like crawling on your son's face, and his friend's like, got it!
Yeah. If I would have heard your story about punching your wife, I might have thought twice before giving them
5-pound
dumbbell
weights.
But,
Yeah. So,
Can I tell my spider
Yeah.
story? So nothing is worse than when you're driving and something happens because you cannot deal with it properly, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Like one time I jammed my finger freaking bad trying to kill a mosquito that was like on my windshield. And I tried to hit it and I like jammed my finger on the windshield.
That is so sad.
I just thought that was what you guys were talking about.
Well, we don't know what he's talking about because you interrupted him.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So I was driving once, like summertime because it's warm. My window's down, and I see this big spider, just like right in. So you know how like the windows of cars, they're not just straight up and down. Like the opening curves with the door. So it's coming down from the seal of the window, but it's like a few inches in the car, like where it's coming down to, you know, which is like over my leg. And it's just like hanging on the whatever, on its web. And so I'm like trying to blow on it, like,
No, because then it's coming back.
what?
And it comes back at
Well,
you.
yeah, and then it's like it starts swinging and stuff, and then like I'm on a road and there's nowhere that I can turn right. I would have needed to make a right turn so that it gets like flung out the window, and then I can roll the window up, or else I'm gonna roll up the window with it inside. And so I'm like just trying to blow on it. I'm like, where can I turn left? Where can I turn right? And then it just dropped, and I was like, ah! And I, patted my what do you call it?
Pants.
Your pants?
I was gonna say lap. Just like the pat. Trying to get it off wherever it is. Couldn't find it. I was like, it's probably in my bum crack somewhere. I don't know.
Bum crack. It's in my bum crack.
Think of all the places. Went straight for the bum.
Did you ever find it?
No. And so finally when I got out of the car, or when I could stop like on the side of the road, I got out of my car and just did that thing where you like just pat everywhere on your body. You like wipe it off and you're like, ah.
Yeah.
And then like rubbing your
feel
hair.
Like this story needs a lot of like visual presence to see all the movements.
Spiders are just eerie. But another thing that I wanted to go into was, as far as like real fears, I mean, like I'm a little claustrophobic. I don't like heights, don't like spiders, snakes, just bugs in general. I mean, it's not like if a bug's on me, I'm going to freak out, but I'd rather not have a bug on me. I just hate mosquitoes. I'm not scared of them, but I hate them so bad.
They are annoying.
But when we're talking about the paranormal,
Yeah.
sometimes that stuff like gets me. And it's really more just the thought, not necessarily that I am just huge into the thoughts of all these, paranormal things happening, but in
the right situations.
Paranormal Activity, that movie. Went and saw it, just the first one. But for whatever reason, I went and saw that movie. It scared the hell out of me. And when I went back home, I could not sleep with my feet dangling out of the blankets lest a demon come and pull me out of the bed. And I am a person, I need to have my feet out because I get so hot. And so I need them dangling. So I just slept for like 2 weeks straight. I was super sweaty because I just needed, my feet had to be in to the protection of the covers. But with that, the couple of stories that I had, was with ghosts. Okay. And I don't know what this was or anything like that. There's probably logical explanations, but it's kind of freaky. So, one of the places that I lived was in my grandparents' old home after they passed. And my wife and I were laying in bed. She was asleep, of course. I was sleeping, and I'm just watching TV. And I'm
ready to pounce and punch
I can tell you, the movie that I was watching was Beaches. It was on TV. I'd never seen
Leonardo
it.
DiCaprio?
No, not The Beach.
Oh.
Beaches with Bette Midler. The one that came up with the song that's like, Did you ever know that you're my hero? That's the song that's the movie that this song came from. And it's just, long story short, it's just about two friends. One of them gets cancer and it's sad. But I'd never seen it. And
then
it was just on.
Your wife just popped up and punched you.
No. She didn't have any other part. She just
domestic violence in this story.
She slept through this whole thing. And I'm watching it, and it cuts to a commercial, and like all of a sudden I hear like this music, and I just kind of assumed that it was the commercial. But then the commercial changed, and the music still stayed constant. And I was like, what the crap? And so then I like actually mute the TV, and there is music playing in my house somewhere. I was like, what the crap? So I get out.
Kids?
No, this is before we had kids. So I get up and I go into the kitchen. We had one of those iPod docks, but you actually had to like, it's not like you could just bump it and it would play. You had to push a button down to like get it to play. And somehow it just started playing. And so I turned it off and I was like, this is kind of creeping me out. So I went back, laid down in bed, turned on TV again. But I still had it on mute because I was like, like listening. And all of a sudden I hear, this is probably about like 5 minutes later, all the way across from the other side of the house in the office, the computer just turns on. And you hear it go like, doon, 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 doon. I was like, what the crap is going on here? And I can't remember what I grabbed. I grabbed something and I'm walking out and I walk into the other room and I turn off the computer and then I just spoke to the air because I was like, Grandma, Grandpa.
All of a sudden, you're like, you've got mail.
I was like, if you guys are doing this, it's freaking me out. But which kind of goes into a couple of other things before, and then I'll be done. Quincy, my wife, some of her biggest fear is just having an intruder in our home, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a call and she's like, somebody's in our house. Nobody has ever been in our house. But when we were in my grandparents' house and living there, and I was working graveyard shifts at a hotel, and I get this call and she's like, there's somebody in here. I heard them and I think they're in the laundry room. And I was like, okay, stop and listen. If there's somebody in the house, you heard one sound. Do you hear other sounds? Because it's not like they're just going to make one sound and then just stop making sounds. She's like, no, I don't hear anything. And I was like, all right. Well, she's like, well, I called my dad anyway. And so he came in, and then they have what I call our Gibson jokes. That's my wife's maiden name. And Gibson jokes are the worst jokes ever because they make you feel so bad. They're just like, they're not normal jokes in the sense that it's like, you know, like haha. It's like, I'm gonna scare the crap out of you, and it's not even gonna be funny. Like, it would be like one of those pranks where you think that somebody died, and then finally they come out and they're like, ha ha ha, you know. So
like the hidden video ones that they just like take it too far.
Yes, it's those where they take it too far.
So April Fools must be very crazy.
I hate
with
April
them.
Fools, but. So he comes in, and of course he goes in and he's like, oh my gosh, there's somebody here. And she's freaking out. Turns out it was a broom that, because the laundry was going slid and then hit the door, and the door slammed. And so she thought somebody was in the house. And then there was another in the house that we currently live. There was just a sound that was going on. I actually had to come home early to try and figure it out. And it took me like a couple weeks to figure it out because we kept hearing it intermittently. And finally figured out that I kept hearing it when it was windy, and found out it was just our electrical box outside. When I went out there the last time to turn off the power for something, I didn't latch it. So anytime it was windy, it would go whoop, whoop. But
wait, was this at your grandparents' house?
No, this was at our current house. But anyway, so what? I mean, as far as like any situations, I know we're kind of running out of time here, but do you guys have anything that like seriously scared the crap out of you?
Well, I just wanted to say this because the broom that fell over reminded me of this. So I have this back porch that whenever I'm out on my back porch, my dog sits right next to me, whatever. And I have a broom out there that I like kind of stand up and like it leans against the corner of the door. So, because I use it to broom off my sweep off my back porch every once in a while. And,
I would
a
assume
couple
that's what you use
times.
the broom for.
The scariest, the highest I've ever seen my dog jump have been like the 2 times that he's just been chilling there, sitting there, and the wind just blows it over, and it like lands right in front of him. He's just like, "Blah!" Just jumps 10 feet in the air.
Brooms
Wait,
are
your
scary. Your dog sounds like that.
Brooms are scary. But what about you, Danny?
So I prepared a few things, but then Trav sent something. He's like, why don't you guys just like narrow it down to one, which is fine. So I'm going to let you guys decide which one you want to hear out of. I have birds, pills.
Well, should we start with mine? Because mine sucks.
Oh, I thought that was.
I thought that
and
was
then we can end on yours. No, that was about my dog, and just your broom reminded me of it.
Yes, go ahead.
So mine is kind of like, I think it was my grandma too, but not my grandma. It's weird because it's probably I was just dreaming it, but I swear I was awake because it's one of those times when you're like half asleep, but you're not asleep. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like
I could.
the story is like very uncommitting. It's like when you're awake but not awake.
Okay, it
When you're
was. Let me
asleep
just
but not
say,
asleep.
I could have been asleep,
was
but
like
it
my
was
grandma, but
all
not my grandma.
super vivid. It was all like it was real life to me, and so it was just like I was sleeping. On my side, I always sleep on my side.
Alan, you don't have to act it out when we're on a podcast. Like this whole time, me telling stories, he's acted out every story he's told.
That's how I tell stories. Okay, I'm very animated, but so I'm sleeping on my side. Awake. And this was like shortly after my grandma died, or a few years. I'm trying to remember as best as I could. I just know I was the scaredest I've ever been. And I swear I could hear, and I did not want to turn over because I was, in my mind, I will see a demon or a ghost if I turn over. Because I could hear plain as day whispering right in my ear and saying, Alan. It's just like the freakiest voice you could ever imagine.
That where? Where was
This was so. Remember when you were living, Danny, in Centerville at that apartment, and you had the upstairs room,
like
the master
loft.
bedroom that
It was
was
kind
like
of
a
a
loft. Yeah, it was when I was staying at your house for a while, or in that apartment, and
I'm glad I never
up
stayed
in there.
over there.
I was up in there, and
Wait, you were in the loft,
yeah, I was up in the loft.
It's freaky.
and that's when you heard it.
So yeah, I heard it.
You sure it
And-
wasn't just Danny going
No. No, so I'm not done, guys. It gets scarier. Oh. I hear this. I'm like, I'm not turning over because I will see something I can't unsee. Sure of it. And after a while, I legit, that's when I felt the covers start, like down by my legs, start to be pulled. Just like, I could feel it like pulling. You know how you get that pressure?
Yeah.
It was plain as day. It was happening. There was whispers. And I was like, oh my God. And then that's when I finally was like, ah! And I just jumped up, like up into the corner of the bed, and there was nothing there. But I was like to the point where it was almost touching me, but through the covers, pulling the covers.
Yeah.
And to this day, I'm like, I don't know if it was grandma, because why would grandma do that to me? That's why I had to. It might have been her messing with me, but why was she? That's why it was probably a demon.
So my story is one day I got really sick, and I came home early from work. It's when we lived in that Centerville apartment.
The same
And
one.
I like crawled upstairs and I just needed help, and I was like,
Okay, you're an
and I was
idiot.
like, I'm almost there, and I was trying to pull myself up on the bed, and then you freaked out and kicked my head and I got knocked out. Just kidding. That's not really mine. But okay, so you guys can pick birds, pills. And I picked these because I thought we were supposed to do unconventional scary things. But then actually I added one, but then the giant shadow hand. Which one would you guys like?
I'm gonna go with the giant shadow hand.
Giant shadow hand.
Okay. You chose wisely. Okay, so no, this is just I don't know. I was just trying to think of unconventional things that have scared me in life because originally I thought that's kind of the direction.
Well, it's kind of unconventional. It's like these aren't things that like are super like these aren't like fears necessarily,
Yeah.
but it's like something that scared you.
Yeah, it's not like
No, exactly. Like it's not
heights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so this, and it's funny because Trav had a lot of stories at his grandma's. Alan had a story where he thought it was his grandma. And this one happened at my grandma's house.
It's the same grandma. you guys
Oh, yeah.
have the
we
same
have
grandma.
we share one. That's what happens when you're brothers. But no, like this
You
is
had
just
one
not
like
if you're like
your
half
grandma.
brothers. If you're half
This
brothers,
is-
you could have
I
a
remember
whole different set
that's
of
true.
grandma.
If you when I was younger, but when I say younger, I'm meaning like when I was in high school age and maybe even like out of high school a little bit. But this is like a reoccurring thing. But I think it's just all built up in my head. And so like it just started off where I think I was down there in her basement one day, but her basement's finished. It's not like it's a scary basement or anything like that. But I was down there, turn out the lights, and then in my head I was like, okay, I have to make it up the stairs within 5 seconds or this giant shadow hand will grab me and pull me back down.
What?
And so every time
Why?
after like I came up with that initially, like that just became what happened if I was the last person in the basement. And so like I'm sure like people probably wondered why I was always frantically running up the stairs.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Because I was always like, as soon as I because we have like a light switch that was kind of like right by the bottom of the stairs, and I'm like, okay, as soon as I flip it, I have to go. Because like the shadow hand is super fast, but it's not. It gives me like a few seconds.
Do you even see the shadow hand? It's just made up in your
Yeah, I
mind.
just made it up one day, and then it became a thing that like I got more and more paranoid every time that I was gonna get caught by the shadow hand. And like there was a couple times like I slipped and smacked my shin on like the stairs, but I had to like keep going. I'm like,
Well, yeah, because your grandparents had that like linoleum,
Yeah, it was, like, hard
flooring on the stairs. So like there was no cushion. It was just, and if you just, I mean, imagine somebody like if you say you cried or something, had like a tear, you were cutting onions and went on the stairs and a tear dropped on those floor. that you were gonna die. The next person going down would slip on that tear, and you would just fall down to your death.
But yeah, that was that was one that's like, yeah, it's not like I ever actually witnessed a shadow hand. I just literally made up the shadow hand in my head sometime when I was probably around
Maybe
13,
that's
14,
where-
15. And then I just started every time I would leave that basement, I would run up the stairs because I'd picture this.
I think a
shadow hand.
lot of people do that though, and maybe not thinking it's a shadow hand, but just you turn the light off down the stairs. There's somebody coming to get you. You got to get up those stairs.
You
real
only have
quick.
so much time.
I was wondering if maybe that's where I got it was from you, because like that happens to me sometimes, or like if like I'm with some friends and we just watched a scary movie and we're all going upstairs, and that, like you said, if I'm the last one, like I'm like right on the butt of whoever's in front of me, like I'm not just hanging back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. Like
That's true.
guys, come on, let's go.
But anyway, so those are it. Go to our webpage, our Facebook, Instagram. Tell us some of your scary stories, times that you got scared, and you know what? We'll read them on the air if they're worth
good.
if they're worth it. I guess
We'll be the judge of that.
But thanks, guys. Sorry we went a little extra long today.
Join us next time, though. Next week, we will be talking about the questions we'll have is, what is the Jersey Devil? Hashtag, are you a hashtag abuser? And
Just threw the hashtag.
I know, I like to add my own things. And then, when will humans colonize Mars? So I think those will all be fun conversation pieces.
Yep. So be sure to visit us or follow us on Twitter at QCode Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, both at QCode Podcast as well. Our website is qcodepodcast.com. And then, of course, our podcast is played on, and you can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube. So thanks, guys, for listening, and join us next week. Have a good one.